Good evening, everyone. This is Joe Anastasi. Thank you for joining us on Zoom, and some of you will be on Facebook Live. Hello, everyone. We are going to cover changes to the PMBOK 6th edition and the PMP exam. Let me move my slide. There we go. So our agenda for this evening, we'll do a quick introduction of myself and what we're all about here. Talk a little bit about the webinar tools we're going to be using for this discussion. Going to cover chapter news and updates. We're going to talk about the 6th edition of the PMBOK. Yes, it's old news. The PMP and CAPM exam changes, some old and some new news, and a little sneak peek at the 7th edition of the PMBOK and the PMP exam. So a little bit about myself. I'm a husband of one wife and father of two daughters. I've been an IT manager at Progressive for the past 21 years. Most of that time has been in a project management or service management capacity. I'm currently the program manager for member services of Northeast Ohio chapter. Previously volunteer leader in 5 different roles for the chapter the past 21 years. I've got a bunch of letters after my name. I'm also an instructor at CSU and AZ, is to deliver project management, Microsoft project, and certification training. I'm also a volunteer for a few organizations here locally, and I'm a lifetime Clevelander. We are using Zoom for webinars. So we're using the webinar feature of Zoom. Please silence your microphones on your computer or your phone. If you want to raise a question, you can use the Zoom chat feature, and we will have someone monitoring to ask the questions on your behalf. To me, Kim is online with me, and she's going to be monitoring the Zoom chat. We are also simultaneously streaming to Facebook Live, and we'll have folks out there on Facebook Live also checking in our Facebook group, also checking for questions. The chat function is available. Your screen might not exactly look like that, but there's a chat button at the bottom of your web page that you can click on and ask your questions. As I said, we're also doing this simultaneously on Facebook Live in our Facebook group. So you can post questions there. We'll try to read those questions. I'm going to intentionally delay a little bit after every slide that I go through because there's a 2 to 3 second delay in streaming to Facebook. So I want to make sure that you're able to see things. All right, and we're going to use a tool called Mentimeter to interact with you so that it's not just you listening to me talk, that you will also be able to interact with me in this presentation. So take a few minutes now and visit this website, www.menti.com, MENTI, enter code 724508. 724508. And then once you're there, you're going to see the first question that I posted out there. I hope it's still there. All right, so let's see what that question is. Taking an exam makes me feel blank. Now, one thing we've done with our Mentimeter account is we don't allow any curse words. So please keep your comment or word clean. Let's go take a look and see how you're doing with that question. Oops. Wow, pretty good. So we've got engaged, anxious. Anxious was the big word there. Energized, stressed, bored, tired. Very interesting answers. I wouldn't disagree with any of those. So thank you. Hopefully you enjoyed that. That was fun. We had 31 responses, so that's pretty good. All right, let me toggle back. All right, so a little bit of chapter news. I want to welcome the following new chapter members. Now, we grabbed this data a couple of weeks ago, so it's not current. So if you joined us in the last few weeks, welcome to the chapter. These are the new members since the beginning of February. Welcome. Glad to have you. We also had a handful of people get some certifications in the last month. Adam, Alex, DeLawrence, Joseph, Sujatha, and Vicky, congratulations on getting that certification. You'll need to do everything you can to keep that certification. So we'll talk a little bit about those strategies in a bit here. So congratulations. Okay. So we have some upcoming chapter meetings, and many of you know what we're going through worldwide. So we are doing our best to see how do we keep programming going, either in some cases postponing, or what we would prefer to do is try to convert our chapter meetings to the best of our ability to webinars, much like tonight's. So I appreciate everyone's understanding. We had to move from the on-site location to making this particular meeting a webinar. We hope to do so again with many of the ones coming up in the future. Tomorrow, March 19th, we have a tech webinar, new Microsoft project, bridging project management and work management. That is tomorrow at noon. Registrations are still open. Visit www.PMINEO.org and register, and be similar format as you're experiencing now on Zoom, for those of you on Zoom. We have a book club meeting coming up. I believe we're exploring options there on what we would do at that meeting. Thursday, 4/16 is another tech webinar at noon, creating brilliant dashboards with Tableau. That should be very interesting as well. That will definitely be a webinar at noon. Our chapter meeting for April is scheduled to be at University Hospital, but we are looking at potentially virtualizing that one as well over Zoom. And we have our big professional development day on May 20th, and we are exploring options again to making that a virtual meeting, or deferring, or doing something so that we could still deliver a professional development day this year, and hopefully in the near term. So just wanted to share with you what's coming up, but also let you know that we're looking to virtualize more as possible. I'm going to pause here real quick. Is there any questions in the chat room, Kim or Christy or anybody else that's out there?
Joe, there was one. It was regarding your next slide on the little Menti. He says it was frozen. Andy said it was frozen, but I think it's just waiting for your next slide to pop up.
Okay. Yes. So those of you on Menti, thank you, Kim. So those of you using Menti, I will advance to the next question. So Menti, so I'll be bouncing between. So thank you. And we'll have another question pretty soon here. All right, so those of you who are kind of like, oh my gosh, I just got certified, or I've been certified forever and I don't want to lose my certifications. Chapter meetings are going to go virtual. What do I do? What do I do? Well, here's something you can do. So we are still, now for those of you, and anyone can benefit from these, not just people that need to maintain their PDU. So anybody that wants continuing education and learning and growing their skills, take advantage of these opportunities. Those especially that have the certifications that need PDUs, here's some options I just want to throw out there for you. Our chapter plans to have monthly webinars, the tech webinars on the third Thursday of every month at noon. We plan on continuing that pattern. It's been a great success so far. We will look at our chapter meetings and converting some or all of those to webinar format as best as we can. The next bullet there, projectmanagement.com. So as a PMI member, you're also a projectmanagement.com member. They have webinars. They actually have a PM Expo 2020 next week, March 26th. And they have other ones too. So there's a whole bunch of webinars on their site when you log in. All you need is a PMI login to get in and access the content. That PM Expo is an all-day thing with multiple modules or multiple sessions, if you will. Feel free to go out there and register and take advantage of that. That's all great. One of the great things about your PMI membership. There's also podcasts. So some of you are new to podcasts or never used a podcast before. It's a great way to get an education and learn and or get some entertainment in your ears. There is a couple I want to bring your attention to. One is PMI's Projectified podcast. This is the one that PMI Global promotes. There's a link there. You can also go into iTunes, Overcast, Pocket Cast, and any other podcatcher type application to get to it. The last one there is called Velociteach. Velociteach is also a professional development partner of ours where we offer a discount as a chapter member for their education, but for free. Velociteach has a Manage This podcast, and they have a whole series of them. And what's great about that site too is they have a little button that you can click on that says, I want to claim a PDU, and you can actually bounce over and with a few clicks, claim a PDU after you've listened to one of their podcasts on the browser. But their podcast is also available in the app. In any of those apps, Pocket Prep, or Pocket Cast, Overcast, iTunes. Any questions? Okay, good. All right, so we're also on social media. I think a lot of us are going to be social media more and more now that it's probably the best way to be social nowadays, or one of the best ways. We have a Facebook group. Some of you are in there now. We're on LinkedIn. We have a meetup group, Instagram, Twitter. Feel free to join any one of those and connect with us, communicate with us. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to engage with you, and we share news oftentimes on those sites. We do, if you are interested in being somebody that will help us with our social media, would love to have you. We do have a good person leading that effort for us, but we always could use some more help. So please contact, you can actually contact me, memberservices@pmineo.org or volunteering@pmineo.org, and we can get you set up. I'd like to take a few minutes and thank our chapter sponsors. Without them, a lot of the things that we pay for and we have available to us is thanks to our sponsors. So Experis, Apex Systems, Strategic Systems, and Tech Systems. They are all consulting companies. They do work for clients. They offer resources, project management, resources to their customers, and also they often are hiring people. So if you're looking for work, these are good companies to go talk to. If you are in shopping for or trying to get additional help for your projects, they'd be great to talk to as well. So thank you very much to our sponsors in supporting our chapter. Here's some stats. I'm not going to read this whole thing to you, but recently we just went over 1,600 members. We had 75 members just join us this year. A little over 1,000, 1,100 are PMPs. But we could mix the sort of people in the chapter and 500 plus people that are not certified. And you know, that's totally okay with us. You don't have to be certified to be a member. We have content and education and eventually social opportunities to get to know each other, whether or not you're certified. But I wanted to give you an idea of the mix in our chapter. I saw some flickering in the chat room. Any questions?
So Todd posted, he says speed it up, get done by 7:30.
Okay, thanks, Todd. All right, so here's our next question. In what year did the song Come Together by the Beatles get released? See how good you are with your trivia. All right, the correct answer is 1969, the same year when PMI was born. So that was, for those of you who recall, last year was our PMI's 50th anniversary and also the 50th anniversary of Come Together, which we all need to do in this time. All right, let's talk about the PMBOK. So PMI authors many global standards. PMBOK is kind of the central standard in their portfolio of standards. PMBOK stands for Project Management Body of Knowledge. It's been around for a long time. I'm not going to play this video, but I will be posting this slide deck as a PDF on our chapter website for our members. It should be up there by the end of this weekend. So you'll be able to download it if you aren't able to take notes as we talk here. But there's a video that kind of talks about why they went to the 6th edition PMBOK. Now, the 6th edition PMBOK, it was in our hands in 2017. So it's not new, it's the newest version. But they do describe their motivation and why they wanted to change it, and specifically why. And as you can see here, they bundled it with the Agile Practice Guide, so there's a lot more Agile speak inside of the PMBOK. We'll explore that in a little bit. So what's a PMBOK Guide? PMI provides global leadership in the development of standards. One of their accomplishments is the Institute's evolving standards document, the PMBOK. It's globally recognized, and the guide is updated every 4 years, and it's an ANSI standard. So, but by being an ANSI standard, there's a lot more rigor and process in building it and defending it. And it is updated every 4 years. At least that's been their cycle for the past long time, like late 80s, early 90s when the first edition came out. So every 4 years, we've been able to enjoy a new guide. So why did the PMBOK change from 5th edition to 6th edition? So the 5th edition was back in 2013. The 6th edition, the recent one, was 2017. Standard, it has to be updated regularly. So they've elected a cycle of 4 to 5 years between guides. PMI continually learns more about what drives successful project outcomes through its research, and PMI wants to share those drivers with the community. So things change. They want to evolve the guide to meet up with the changes in the economy and in the world. Yes.
Dominic, so will the 7th edition come out next year, 2021? Question mark.
That's a great question. I have a slide in the future, so I'm going to leave that. I'm going to leave you hanging, Dominic. For now. The answer is maybe, but I'll explain in a little bit. All right, another question. So those of you, I didn't even cover this yet, so let's see how smart of students you are. How many knowledge areas are in the PMBOK and how many process groups are in the PMBOK? All right, we were all over the place. The correct answer is 10. All right, knowledge areas. Let's see if you got the process group question right. Let's go. Correct answer is 5 process groups. Initiating, planning, executing, monitoring, controlling, and closing. All right, and then that was the most dominant answer, so good job. All right, so we're talking about the current PMBOK, the 6th edition, the 2017 edition, if we want to call it that. Here's the top things that changed. We are using the word schedule versus time, right? We don't manage time, we manage schedules. We changed the wording of human resource management to just resource management because it's, even though humans are the most important resources on a project, we manage all types of resources, labor, equipment, and materials. And then, so we're changing the name of we changed the name of 2 of the knowledge areas, and there's 10 of them, right? We've added 3 new processes. Manage project knowledge is a new one. Managing project knowledge is part of the executing process group and project integration management knowledge area. This process likely serves to expand the idea of managing information within the project from raw data to integrated information to knowledge and decision to make wisdom. Implementing risk responses. This process is part of the execute process group and project risk management. It was previously rolled into direct and managed project work. They decided it's important to break this out because implementing the risk responses, there's no reason to plan it if you're not going to do anything about it. So they're going to break it out so to give it its own emphasis. And the last of the 3 new processes, control resources. This new process is part of the monitoring controlling process group in the project resource management knowledge area. There was a process called manage project team in previous editions of the PMBOK. Now we're talking about control resources, and controlling is really tracking and making changes. Every project manager recognizes it's important to assess actual versus planned usage of resources So that's really what this process is all about. The third revision, we're changing the name of 9 processes. Perform quality assurance to manage quality. Plan human resource management, change to plan resource management. Acquire project team to acquire resources. Develop project team to develop team. Manage project team to manage team. So you notice how they dropped the word project in the middle of those last 3, only because it's obvious we're dealing with project management. It's kind of a unneeded term in the middle there. So they're going for simplification. The control communications is now monitor communications, and the distinction is, as a project manager, we do a lot of communicating. We need to make sure that communications are happening between team members, stakeholders, and of course our own communication as a PM. Planning stakeholder management has been changed to plan stakeholder engagement. We don't manage stakeholders, we engage them. Controlling stakeholder engagement has been changed to monitor stakeholder engagement, and control risk to monitor risk. So the significance here is we're seeing the word control a lot here. Control means setting up a system to influence behaviors and activities and to take action. So to be proactive, to pay attention, and take action. Where monitoring is how to just pay attention, just make sure things are going, not necessarily always taking action. All right, other process changes. If you refer to the Appendix X1 in the PMBOK, these 6 knowledge areas, so 6 out of the 10 had changes. Okay, hopefully you got this one because I just gave you the answer. How many knowledge areas had changes? Good. What, you mean the Menti screen?
Yes, now it's back to normal though, so you're good.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. So most of you were paying attention. Thank you.
Yes, the Menti screen's on, 18 people got it.
Great.
Yeah, flip back to your one on the left. Yeah. Perfect.
Okay, thank you, Kim.
You're welcome.
Everyone needs a Kim. All right, integration management. So we, and I'm not going to read through every one of these slides. They'll be available to you as a PDF. I do want to get into more of the future state, but I wanted to highlight some of the big changes here in the PMBOK, going from 5th to 6th edition. You can see that they've added that managed project knowledge process. Talked about that. We have added the estimate activity resources. Actually, it's been moved from another knowledge area into this one. The quality processes, basically 8.2 was renamed from perform quality assurance to manage quality. We've added 2 resource management processes in the 6th edition, estimate activity resources. Actually, there was a move from the schedule management one. Now it belongs here. And controlling resources. And as we talked about earlier, the words project, project, project here got dropped. So it's not as redundant. We went from controlling communications to monitoring communications. We don't always have to take action on a communication. We went from controlling risks to implementing risk responses and monitoring risks. So there's more processes there. Really key important one here is implementing risk responses. So they want to emphasize that You don't just want to have a list of risks and not do anything about it. You should have our lists of risks and an action plan to execute either the contingency plan or mitigation or whatever the strategy is, and then do that and then monitor how well it's going, and then identify new risks and kind of loop throughout your project. So implementing is just as important as planning. All right. We moved one and renamed one process. So as we talked about, estimate activity resources was part of planning. The process was renamed estimate resources and associated with resource management. We deleted a process, but we still picked up a few. So there were 47 processes in the 5th edition. Now we have 49 in the 6th edition. 47, we added 3 and took 1 away. The closed procurement process has been captured within controlled procurements and closed project or phase. Research shows that very few project managers have the authority to formally and legally close a contract. So instead of making it more of a pronounced process, they said it still happens, but they moved it into closed project. All right, see if you're paying attention. Oops. How many processes are in the latest PMBOK?
49. I can see your screen again.
Oh, do you see the answer?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Now that they can hear us, I wonder if they'll still guess right. Let's see. All right, good. 49. All right, which of the following is not a new process? And hope everyone's having fun with this Menti thing. Staying awake. All right. So we're thinking approved change request is not a new process. Let's see. Yep, you are correct. Approved change request is not even a process, let alone a new one. These other 3, manage project knowledge is a new one, control resources, and implement risk response are new. Approved change request is not, and not even a process at all. All right, 6th revision of the PMBOK. Numerous references to adaptive and iterative practices, including Agile. The decision was made in response to the request of PMI stakeholders. So every chapter in the new PMBOK, in the latest PMBOK, has Agile in the beginning and threaded throughout. There's also an appendix about Agile, and there's also an Agile practice guide that's a companion standard with the PMBOK. So Agile is here, finally. They finally acknowledged it. Changes to the content include the practices often used in an adaptive environment in front of each knowledge area section, an appendix to the standard for project management on Agile and other iterative practices. Although it's not part of the PMBOK guide, a separate practice guide for Agile was released. So there's a companion document. The next revision, the role of the project manager in the PMI Talent Triangle. The 6th edition contains a new chapter on the role of the project manager. The chapter covers the talent triangle and the skill sets organizations demand of the project manager. They need to be more competitive and relevant with their technical project management skills, but also leadership and strategic and business management are all important. As many of you know, those of you that are credentialed and claiming PDUs, you know that they ask the question, is it technical leadership or strategic business? When claiming your PDUs, they want to make sure you have a mix of all of those as you keep your certifications. But for everybody, regardless if you're certified, you need all three to be an effective project manager. Here's the old triangle. Value, value, value. So one of the things in what lean and agile techniques, and should be even with the traditional predictive techniques, it's really about the value. What value is your project? So it's all about not only having the skills, but your job as a project manager is to deliver value. There's the addition of emerging trends and practices, not only generally accepted good practices, but also emerging tools, trends, techniques, and practices. For those people who are looking for industry specific or modern, but somewhat untried approaches to project management. So the concept of being agile, incremental development or construction, experimentation, piloting, all those kind of things are emerging trends. And some of you may say, well, we've been doing it for 20 years, and you're right. The PMBOK in a way is catching up with what some folks have been doing for decades, but as I've been saying, we're finally here, at least with PMI. There's 4 new sections in each knowledge area chapter in the PMBOK: key concepts, trends and emerging practices, tailoring considerations, and considerations for agile adaptive environments. So tailoring, and we're going to talk about that in a minute, is basically adjusting your processes and your approach to getting the work done. Your job is to deliver value. There are times where a predictive or waterfall approach is right. Sometimes it's agile. Sometimes it could be Kanban. It could be multiple ways of managing potentially multiple work streams within your project. So being able to tailor your project to suit the needs and to deliver the value the quickest and most effective way. Considerations for being agile and adaptive are there too. Tailoring, you must determine appropriate methodology, tools, and techniques. You need to flex processes and focus on the customer needs. Sometimes a hybrid approach and methodology is needed for different aspects of the work. You'll need to address competing constraints of risk, quality, scope, schedule, resources, and cost, and also be nimble and agile and deliver quickly, right? They want it all. I see a question in the chat, I think.
Yes, it says, will the PowerPoint presentation be shared? Yes.
Yes. I will convert this to a PDF and it'll be uploaded to the chapter website this weekend. All right, life cycle approaches. I think that's a thank you. We'll see. Life cycle approaches. So predictive. This is the classic waterfall technique, and you could tell by the diagram here. That's why they call it waterfall, because the phases overlap and looks like water can flow across it. You do requirements to prep yourself for design. You do design to prep yourself for implementation, etc. That's a predictive life cycle. Very good way of doing projects that are tried and true, not a lot of mystery, pretty clear requirements, not a lot, and hopefully not a lot of change requests, although it is sometimes happens when, if you don't have all your requirements and design properly, you go back but it has been tried and true, and for a lot of projects, predictive works. The Agile method is iterative meaning time boxed. So you deliver value in 2 to 4 week periods. The team sets goals and then say, hey, the next 2 weeks, we're going to deliver X. And they all work towards that goal. Incremental means we are going to build the solution piece by piece, building it up to larger and larger increments. So starting with a wheel and eventually building the car, or starting with a skateboard. You've probably seen the pictures, start with a skateboard, then turn into a motorcycle and eventually turns into a car. And adaptive meaning just react to changes. So there's more of a propensity and acceptance that changes are going to happen. In fact, it's expected. We want the decisions, requirements designed to evolve over the life of the project. It's expected, it's welcomed, and we do it. So in an Agile method, whether it's iterative, you have these sprints or cycles or iterations that are 2 to 4 weeks long. You build, design, test, deliver, learn, keep going. Eventually, you got to ship something. But that's the Agile method. It's basically doing predictive, but in shorter life cycles or shorter periods. And then you have hybrid. Hybrid is just a mix and match. So sometimes you'll take a work stream and do it predictively, and then maybe another work stream or a set of a body of work, you do it Agile. None of these approaches eliminates the need for planning. None of these approaches eliminate the needs for project managers, despite the rumors. You still need leadership, project management leadership, and if you're doing Agile project, Agile leadership on the team. Hybrid takes the best of all approaches. You can use a predictive. You can also use adaptive Agile, and depending on the element or the object that you're building, one may be more favorable to another. The 10th revision, emphasis on strategic and business knowledge. So one of the things that makes project managers successful is not only being able to lead their own projects, but to also understand their project in the context of the strategy and the business. So, and business could be nonprofit or for-profit, but in general, so what is the purpose of the organization you're doing the project for? What's their strategic goals and plans? How does my project fit into that? So having that knowledge of the big picture helps you execute your project in such a way that it leans into and emphasizes and makes that strategy happen. We've added a new risk response. The new strategy, escalate response, provides for PMs escalating risk to the appropriate party so that the risk is no longer the PM's responsibility. To me, this is probably one of the most controversial things to put into the PMBOK. I don't think it should be, but from people I talk to, it is. We've been taught and preached that project managers should be fully empowered. It's your project, deal with it. There are some things that you don't have control over. You have a bag of money, but you don't have the big bag of money. You have the resources assigned to the project, but you don't have all the resources in the company. So there are times where you need to escalate. You, as a project manager, in my opinion, should go to your sponsors, go to your stakeholders with alternatives or ideas. You may not have all the alternatives figured out, but at least conceptually have some going in message. But there are times where you say, look, I don't know, I can't control this all. This needs to be an escalation. So for example, if we need to get a lot more money or get outside contractors outside of my budget or whatever as a project, I need to be able to escalate that. And my stakeholders and my sponsors need to be able to take that partially off my back and execute it. It's still my responsibility to pay attention to it. I may not have may have to do all the work, but I still have to make sure that it happens. And that I call it the monkey. The monkey needs to go on somebody else's back, and I got to make sure that that monkey and the back it goes on to actually makes things happen. So escalation, You know, it's always been like, oh, you should never escalate. So if it's within the confines of your project, it's yours. If it's not, your response could be, I need to escalate. And it's a healthy thing. Once a risk is escalated, the PM has two options: remove the risk from the risk register, like if it's escalated, but it's not continually impacting the project, or keep the risk in the risk register, but classify it as escalated and assign to sponsor X or stakeholder X. You still need to pay attention to whether or not the risk and impact is still live. All right, they changed the word communication and communications. Communication singular is two or people talking to each other. Communications plural or artifacts like emails, status reports, etc. So there's been some correction, clarification in the PMBOK to distinguish between the two and use the right word in the right context. Changes in the project management plan components and project documents in the 5th edition. The components, the procurement management plan, stakeholder management plan, all those management plans were depicted as inputs or outputs. Now they just say the project management plan is an input without having to know specifically which one of those management plans are in there. Sneak preview with the 7th edition, they're going to even de-emphasize all these unique things and really focus more at a high level on project documentation versus these distinct artifacts and docs. But that'll be coming up in a minute. Beneath the input-output table, the ITOs, there's a list of potential project management plan components. The components of the project management plan that will be inputs depends on the needs of the project. You don't always have to update the risk management plan, for example. All right, so all these changes affect the exam. Now, the current exam, the number of processes has gone up. Adding 2 more processes net does not necessarily make it more difficult exam, but you must target the train for more functions within project management and their details. Again, the addition of agile and hybrid and tailoring makes the exam a little harder than it used to be. There's those 3 new processes will be at least 5 to 10% of the new content and part of your PMP exam prep. So you would think 5 to 10% of the exam around new processes and agile at least. Agile and Scrum is strewn all throughout the PMBOK. There's a brand new appendix that covers it. You need to learn the terminology, processes, and application of Agile along with traditional project management. It is not expected for you to be an Agile project manager to sit for the exam. You do need to know Agile terminology, techniques, and practices to pass the exam, but you do not need to be an Agile project manager or Scrum Master. So don't worry, you need to know what it is. You don't need to have done it, if that helps. I know that makes people nervous. Okay, so here's the appendices in the, they're all labeled with X's, the changes of the 6th edition, contributors, Agile, there's a whole section on Agile, key concepts, there's a whole section on tailoring. I took my CAPM again recently, and there's a lot of questions on tailoring on the CAPM, and I'm assuming there's going to be a bunch of questions on tailoring on the PMP exam. For those of you who newly got it, you probably could tell stories. And then tools and techniques. All right, let's talk about the exams. So some of this timeline is in the past. I want to kind of show you the evolution of the exam changes. Back on July 1st of last year, we moved all testing to Pearson VUE. They had split, like the CAPM or the ACP were at Prometric sites and PMP were at Pearson. I don't remember exactly. They struck a better deal with just Pearson. Pearson has many more certification locations. They also have the ability to do pop-up. So if there's a place where there isn't a testing location, they can actually do a certification in a box and bring certification in a pop-up sense to a location. So that's been pretty good. They've been also been able to support online proctoring, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Pearson has been able to do that. So everything's through Pearson now. There's plenty of testing sites here locally. In August, end of August, 1,500 work experience requirement for the new CAPM was eliminated. So for the CAPM, all you need is 23 hours of project management education, period. You don't ever have to have worked on a project. You definitely don't ever have to have led a project, only 23 hours of education as of last August. PMI in the top right corner here, PMI will waive the 35 hours of education required for CAPM holders who apply for the PMP. So those of you right now that have the CAPM and aspire to get the PMP later, you don't have to do the education requirement for the PMP. They figure you already have your 23 hours of education, plus you sat the exam, you've got enough education. All you need for the PMP is just the experience hours. And I see that there's a question. I'm going to finish the slide and I'll get to the question. On July 1st of, September of last year, there's new question types on the CAPM exam. We're going to talk about that in a minute. First and second quarter of this year, we're going to pilot the new PMP exam. And on July 1st, there'll be new questions. The new exam will be available July 1st. I'm going to correct this thing here. The new question types will be on the PMP, not the CAPM. So I'll correct that before I post the slide. Kim, is there a question in the chat?
Yes, there is a question. It says, will the virus affect the July 2020 rollout date? And then someone posted the next exam will be pushed to January 1st, 2021. So will there be a delay in the July 2020 rollout? And then Andy posted the new exam got pushed to January 1st. Is that correct?
So both of those are news to me, and all this COVID is news to all of us. So I will follow up on that. I'm betting Andy is right. I did not look at the PMI website today to see what they were doing. Before I publish the slide deck, I will make the slide deck current as of today. So that may be true, and I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised from two factor. One is the virus, and two, I think there was a lot going into this exam changes that I'm going to talk about here in a minute that will inspire them to want to make the changes. Okay, I see a whole bunch of other chats in the window there. Any other things, Kim?
Yeah, they're just commenting back and forth that they can't hear our conversation. Todd just posted, yes, the exam changed and was to January 1st, 2021.
Okay.
So they're just slightly confused about our back and forth conversation.
Oh, yes. Oh, so I'm sorry, folks. So those of you on the line, I am talking to my colleague, Kim, who's monitoring the chat room. So if you're hearing me talk to myself and not, if you don't hear Kim, because she's in my other ear. So
That's right.
Thank you, Kim.
And yeah, you're welcome.
So normally we would probably do this in a conference room. We're all sitting together across the table, but in this day and age, we couldn't do that. So yes, I do have not an imaginary friend. She's a real friend. Okay. Any other fresh questions, Kim?
No. They said I need to talk louder, but they guess they don't understand us. So.
Can they understand me?
No, they said Kim should talk louder. They don't realize that you and I are on our cell phones.
Oh, okay. Yes. We're doing our best here, folks. Thank you. I will adjust the slides as needed. Okay, so I got a text message. So the question that was asked is, will the new, so on the slide, I say July 1st. PMI probably recently updated their website to say that the exam date has moved to January 1st, 2021, or something like that. Before I publish these slides, I will update the slides and post them to the website with the new date. Okay. Anything else, Kim, on the chat?
They are loud and clear now.
Okay. All right. Pearson, we've already talked about them. They're no longer using Prometric. They have better international coverage. Pearson does. They could do pop-ups. And locally, if you're looking for a testing center, Independence, Beechwood, Westlake, Copley, Erie, PA, and there's a link there if you want to look for the nearest testing site. Effective now, the prerequisite changes, 1,500 hours of work experience as an option has been removed. Most people reported the education hours, not the experience hours. So they said, let's get rid of the work experience, just focus on education. The prereqs for the CAPM with a secondary degree, you need a secondary degree and 23 hours of education. The new question types on the CAPM exam. The current multiple choice single correct answer will be supported in the CAPM and PMP exams. In order to continue to evaluate and improve the exam taking experience. So there's just the current CAPM, and there will be some in the future PMP. The matching questions, test takers will see two lists: project management processes and process groups, and multiple choice questions with multiple correct answers. So the pure multiple choice single answer, we're going to have other types of questions too, matching and multiple choice, multiple answers. What I've heard was they were going to probably tell you, hey, pick 3 for this latter item, pick 3 of the following correct. So you would be given a number. And I also heard a rumor that they'll give you partial credit. So we'll see what they really do, but that's what I've heard. As things evolve, we can share that out with you. The matching is drag and drop. The CAPM is only based on the PMBOK and the Agile content in the PMBOK. It does not incorporate the Agile Practice Guide. It does not incorporate any other guides or documents outside the PMBOK. The CAPM is straight up PMBOK only. There's no place like home. You could take the CAPM or the ACP now at home or at a Pearson View Center. My guess is the at-home option will probably be attractive for some, at least in the near future. The home test is proctored. The proctor will ask to check the room and desk for materials to make sure that you don't have any study guides or cheat sheets around. If the proctor detects an anomaly during the test would be canceled. If you take it from your home or office, keep your roommates, family, friends, dogs, cats, and baby sharks out of the room. PMP and the other PMI certifications are delivered in Pearson View testing centers only. So only the CAPM and PMI ACP are at home. The rest are delivered in person at a Pearson View testing center. But heck, who knows? News are changing, so we'll see if that continues. But that's the state of the union as far as I know. Right now, if you're already a CAPM, they waive the 35 hours of education as of July 1st, potentially January 1st after I check into it. The application simplified from 30 data entry screens to just 4 screens. So those of you who have applied for the PMP, you know how you got to go through all those screens, kind of like doing your taxes online. In here, they've simplified it to just 4 screens. Applicants would enter the number of months and years of experience, not specific hours. Remember, I'm sure some of you remember when you did your PMP app that you had to come up with 4,500 hours. And some of you worried about, do I have to do exactly 4,500? What if I go over? What if I don't have enough in one area or another? Now they're focused on months and years, not hours. They can't verify it anyway, truthfully. Applicants would enter the 35 hours of project management education like they have in the past. So they're simplifying the application form. That's been a barrier to entry, in my opinion. I think some people get intimidated by the application and they don't even keep going. The exam's hard enough. All right, so on July 1st or January 1st, the last day to take the current version of the exam, the revised content outline is there and linked in the PowerPoint, and I will verify that link again before I post this slide. I saw a flicker, Kim. What was there a new question?
Yes, new question. Will the July 1st date potentially change due to the date changing? So I guess I'm not really understanding that question very much.
All right, so the question in the chat is, will the July 1st date change due to the exam changing? And the July 1st date is the exam change date as of a week ago. It may have been moved now to January 1st. So I would assume if it's January 1st, December 31st is the last day to take it with the current version of the exam.
That's all the questions so far.
Okay, thank you. All right, in the new exam, whatever the date is going to be, the PMP is going to evolve just like the profession. The new exam will focus on 3 new domains. Truthfully, 2 new domains, but these are the 3 domains. People, emphasizing the skills and activities associated with effectively leading a project team. Process, reinforcing the technical aspects of managing a project. And business environment, highlighting the connection between projects and organization strategy. So people, process, and business. For those of you used to the PMBOK, you read the PMBOK, taking the CAPM or the PMP, you know that it's process heavy, memorization of the inputs, tools, and techniques, outputs. That's been the driver of the PMBOK for the last few decades. Now they're going to talk more about people and business environment. The exam is leaning more towards a principle-based exam versus a process and memorization-based exam. Considerations for predictive, agile, and hybrid will be included across the 3 domains. Take a look at that exam content outline that I had hyperlinked in the prior slide. I will double check the link again to see if they've made any changes to it. It was current as of this last weekend, so that you can take a look and see what's going to be in the new exam. So we're going from 5 domains down to 3. The exam content online changes every 3 to 5 years. The exam change in July is the eco and domains only. The new exam will not be on the new PMBOK. The new PMBOK that hasn't been released yet will still be on the current PMBOK. And for the PMP, you need to know more than the PMBOK and the Agile Practice Guide. And I've been checking the website regularly. They've been posting sample guides and books that you can study to better prepare for the PMP, but it's not sole source. So a lot of people will take the PMBOK and read it and think they could take the exam. There's more stuff on that exam that's on the PMBOK. They're looking for general knowledge, broader than just studying or memorizing the PMBOK. Kim, I saw a flicker in the chat room. Is there a new question?
Yes. Do you recommend taking the
Okay. If it was me and I'm already currently studying for this exam, I would take this exam. So my thinking isn't because of the exam changes. My thinking is, if I could do it now, I'm going to do it now. I don't like waiting. So I don't know essentially if the exam is going to get harder or easier in the future. I just know it's going to be different. The way we've been teaching the material for 20 years now has been very process focused with a little bit of principles. I suspect that the exam will change to be a little bit more principle and a little less memorization. So in my mind, it could be a little harder to teach. However, if you're already studying, knock it out before June 30th or December 31st, whatever the date is. I would not wait. Yes.
They would like you to repeat the question that was you just answered. So the question was, do you recommend taking both of them?
Okay. So the question I just answered is, do I recommend taking the old test or the new test? So same answer. There's only one test available now. If you're already studying now, take the current exam. I would not wait.
Thank you, Joe. That's it so far.
Okay, thank you. All right, so go back to Menti. Let's see if you get this one, the new domains in the exam content outline. All right, the three correct answers is people, process, and environment. Agile was the trick part of that question. It is in the PMBOK and it will be covered definitely, but it's not one of the three domains. All right, the exam in the future. In the past, the focus was process, predictive. Today and in the future, the focus is people, business environment, agile, tailoring. In the future, consider emotional intelligence, agile, hybrid, tailoring, strategic alignment. Half the exam in the future, let's pretend it's January 1st, half the exam will be predictive and hybrid, the other half will be agile focused. Don't worry, you don't have to be an Agile PM to take the exam. You just need to know Agile stuff. Kim, was there a new question in the chat? Okay, doesn't sound like there was a new question. Okay. Or I lost Kim.
Oh, hey, Joe. They just wanted to make sure that to let you know that they were only able to select one of the answers in the Menti.
Oh, really?
All three. Yeah. So I would need to check into that later.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
The question asked was they were only able to select one question in the Menti, but as a group, you guys answered the three majority properly. Thank you. The Agile Practice Guide. This is a companion guide to the PMBOK. It's been recently translated into 12 languages. It's principle-based. Notice the word principle there. That word principle is going to come up over and over and over again, especially if you start studying for the new exam, the new PMP exam. They're going to focus more on principle than memorization. The second edition of the Agile Practice Guide is not yet planned. So there's no plan for a second edition of this guide. today. All right. The PMBOK 7th edition in a few years. So Dominic, I am getting back to answering your question. So good forecast segue for me there, Dominic. Thank you. So, and this is evolving, and I'm sure you're going to go out and find some information that's fresh. There's stuff that's getting published constantly about this, just like the date change. Earlier, a couple of months ago, they published the beginning of the 7th edition PMBOK as an exposure draft. It's not the whole PMBOK, but the front sections. Later this year, we should see the exposure draft of the entire PMBOK. It's getting thicker and thicker, as you know. When I took the exam, it was, you know, half-inch thick. Now the PMBOK itself is 1.5 inches thick. They are saying that the PMBOK will shrink in size in the next edition. Instead of having all that stuff, all the tables, all the charts, all the inputs, tools, and techniques and outputs, they are going to take all that stuff out of the PMBOK. So it's going to thin it out. They're going to focus more on process, less on process, more on principles. The new guy will cover entire delivery spectrum, from ideation all the way through implementation, you know, full life cycle kind of stuff. The new guy will link to or reference outside resources to provide specifics. So instead of trying to explain, I use the example of Monte Carlo simulation. Instead of trying to explain the Monte Carlo simulation in detail, they're just going to say, know what it is, and then they'll have outside resources, digital content, videos, podcasts outside of the PMBOK. One benefit of that is as those things evolve, you would have the PMBOK itself could be a little bit more evergreen. What I mean by that is a little bit more current by not having all this evolving stuff inside of the PMBOK, and then they have to print and make changes. This way they can just touch upon a topic, but then link out to something else that could be kept, like online resources that could be kept more up to date. So when is it coming out? It depends on who you read. So I've read, and again, I probably have to go back to the website to see if there's new dates out there. So if they stick to the 4-year pattern, this is the year where you get the exposure draft. Next year is the year where the new PMBOK is out. So that would be 2021, or late Q4 2020, or very early 2021. I have seen some reports, not necessarily from PMI, saying 2022. And even with the new PMBOK, they don't change the exam to align to the PMBOK for at least 6 months to give registered education providers a chance to change their materials to align to the new exam. So the PMBOK comes out, usually 6 to 9 months later, the exam is changed. With all the stuff that's going on in the news today in our lives, who knows what the dates will be. I see a couple of flickers in the chat room. Maybe somebody else has some new knowledge that they want to share. So Kim, is there a new comment or question out there?
No, I think you covered it. The one question was, if version 7 comes out in December, why wouldn't they hold off on updating the PMP exam to align with it? And then there was another comment that says, Colleen, just stand by, please. And then there was another comment that says the exams seem to lag the PMBOK by 2 to 3 years.
Yeah, so the exam, thank you, Kim. So the questions were just around the dates that I kind of explained there with the PMBOK and the exam. So if they were going to stick to what they've done in the past, they would have the new PMBOK in the 4th quarter of the year that they want to release. So if the pattern, if they stuck to the past, and now there's a new world here, but if they would have stuck to the past, we would have a new PMBOK late this year. The new exam would be July of next year. They usually give 6-7 months after the exam, at least, to give the training providers the chance to change their study materials. Why are they changing the exam now or soon? Again, that got deferred. Is they wanted to add the different question types. They wanted to make the application process a little simpler. They wanted to make sure that people are starting to get ready for that principle-based thinking and introduce those different types of questions, a style, make it a little bit more of a modern exam. That multiple choice, is kind of stale. It's kind of like the classic way of doing tests. They wanted the test to be a little bit more interactive, maybe more video in the exam. And they wanted to do that before not only changing the exam type, but also changing the content. So if they were to stick to the timeline I thought there was this past weekend, this July would have been the new exam, old content, new content the end of this year, fourth quarter, and then new exam next July. Everything's probably getting shifted out 6 months, I'm guessing. Hope that helps. Okay. All right. So I did plan on making this an hour-and-a-half meeting, hour because we're kind of together online, but you will still get your PDUs. But any general questions out there that wasn't already asked?
Joe, so far, no comments or questions yet.
Okay.
Hopefully we have one.
And if there's anything on Facebook too.
I can't see the Facebook comments.
Okay.
There seems to be good. There's 8 comments though on Facebook, but I cannot see them.
Okay.
No questions on Facebook. Good. Let's see here. Question. So I have had my PMP for years. I figure that I need to show I am learning. What can you say about the Agile exam?
Okay, so the question in the chat is, I have been a PMP for years. Now they're adding Agile. How do I show that I've learned Agile? I'm paraphrasing. And
like if she wants to continue showing that she's learning, would you suggest taking the Agile exam?
well, much like, so what I suggest taking the new PMP exam just to show that experience. Personal opinion, not a PMI statement here. If you want to show Agile knowledge or experience, there's the PMI ACP exam. That's, I think, from a PMI perspective, would be a good one to take if you want to demonstrate, like you've been a traditional PM for years, you have your PMP, but you want to show Agile experience. PMI ACP, the Agile Certified Practitioner exam, is a good way to go. Outside of the PMI family, there's the Scrum Master certifications. I'm not endorsing any of them, but there's the CSM and the PSM. They're excellent exams as well, kind of demonstrate Agile experience. I don't necessarily would encourage somebody to take the PMP again. I think one time's a charm. But that's my opinion. Hopefully I didn't answer the question. And I think I repeated the question in the answer. Any new other questions, Kim? You're awesome, Kim. Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, you're welcome. There's another question by the same individual for us here. You said you have the PMI ACP. Is it hard, challenging, question mark?
Yes. However, is the PMI ACP a challenging exam? Of all the exams that I've taken, the PMP is the hardest. The PMI ACP was challenging, but not very hard. One of the benefits and one of the prereqs of taking the PMI ACP is that you've led Agile projects. So that knowing the Agile manifesto, knowing Agile principles, knowing a little bit about all the different methodologies and frameworks out there like Scrum and the SDM and test-driven development and Crystal and all that is important. Truthfully, there's a heavy bias of Scrum in the ACP exam from what I've taken. There's excellent training material out there. One of the things with the ACP is it's basically testing on tried and true Agile practices. When I took the exam, they recommended us reading 12 different books. I think this Agile practice guide that they just released in 2017, to me, is a shortcut into studying, although you should still study other materials in addition to that, like how to do retrospectives, lean, Kanban. There's a variety of things that you should know to take the ACP. So tying back to the earlier question, the ACP is a good way to go if you want to demonstrate Agile knowledge, not necessarily taking the PMP again. And it is challenging, but I think the PMP is the hardest. Any other questions, Kim?
No, there's no further questions at this time.
Okay, great. Well, I'd like to thank everyone for joining. Let me share with you, again, a reminder, here's some upcoming chapter meetings. I'm not going to read this to you again. This is an evolving list. Tomorrow's definitely happening, at least the webinar is. And the other events on here, we're looking to either postpone or convert to webinar. We already talked about how to keep up with your PDUs or keep up with your knowledge. There's podcasts, projectmanagement.com webinars. Kim, there's a couple people in the chat buzzing. Is there a new question?
No, they're just thanking us for our time and appreciation.
Okay, thank you very much. Lastly here, for those of you that don't have a PMI credential or certification, you don't have to claim PDUs. For those of you that have a PMP or PMI ACP or PGMP and need to claim PDUs, you need to self-report, because I don't know who you are. This is the PDU claim code. They've actually simplified the PDU claiming process. You type in that number, it'll be in the slide deck when I upload it this weekend, but you'll have to do it yourself. That's the claim code, that's the title. The course identifier number is today's date in that format. You're going to get a 1.5 technical PDUs. I'll leave this up on the screen so that you can take a picture with your phones or whatever, or jot it down. And again, I'm going to correct the slide deck and upload it this weekend. And this presentation has been recorded to Facebook Live. It'll be out there later in our Facebook group for anybody who wants to watch it again or skim through it. You don't have to watch the whole thing again. You can scan through it. Okay. Very good. Thank you very much on behalf of the local PMI chapter and the Project Management Institute. If you have any further questions after today, feel free to hit me up at memberservices@PMINEO.org or follow me on LinkedIn or Facebook, and you can message me that way as well. Thank you all very much. Have a great evening and be safe and be healthy, and we'll get through this together. Thank you.